Hi YouTube, this is Robin That's One here, and I am going to be reviewing Iron Man 3. This film was slightly disappointing. I don't feel it lived up to my expectations of the of Iron Man, and I feel like this is the weakest film throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this certainly is the most weakest out of the Iron Man franchise. See, in the movie, they use two very complex ideas. They use an extremely good story called The Extremis, which I did a collected editions review on. If you want to know more about that, click on the link below. And I also use the Mandarin, who is a wonderful villain, and they could have done a lot with that, but they didn't. Because, like, with the Mandarin, you could have, like, the Mandarin's 10 rings that he has on his fingers could have been used to, like, control the Iron Man suits and sort of be, like, this big threat that the trailers made him out to be. The Mandarin was not a threat at all. They turned the Mandarin into a joke, and I felt like this has ruined the Mandarin. Like, the way they used the Mandarin was ruined. And, like, the Mandarin for me was the weakest point of the film, because Ben Kingsley, although a lot of people wanted him to be the Mandarin, if those of you who have seen Prince of Persia, you know, that film wasn't great. And it did really... The Mandarin could have been better, like, and you could have used him as he is in the comics. But they didn't, and it completely ruined his character. They also used the Extremis storyline. And the movie is quite heavily done with Extremis. And the Iron Man trilogy doesn't really dive too much into Stark Industries. And this is a great problem, because in Extremis, it's all about the, you know, the consumer products and the retail value of things and how the government controls people's lives. This film doesn't have that at all. And the Iron Man trilogy doesn't have that at all. I think that created such a big problem. because much of that core base for that that comic comes from that material. So I was a bit just disappointed there. And the story that they made, just, it was a tangled mesh of stories that weren't satisfying. Like, you have Maya Hansen, who knows Tony back when Tony was at a conference, and this conference just so happens to be the same conference that Yo Hinson from the first film attended, that he references in the first film. So we can see that this, that the 10 rings go back as far as that, and this film does nothing with that. Like, you have an entire story arc that goes back as far as the first film, and you use the main character that was part of Tony's kidnapping, and you do nothing with it. Why? You know, the story could have been so interesting, and nothing happened. And I think this film tried to be bigger than it was. And it was big, but but Tony was part of the Avengers. Where is S.H.I.E.L.D. in this film? S.H.I.E.L.D. does not appear in this film. It's referenced, but it doesn't appear. And it should have done, because Tony was part of the Avengers. He is a consultant to S.H.I.E.L.D. And I think the Mandarin threat would have been a bigger part, and it just wasn't. I mean, at least you could have had a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent in there, but they didn't. The Iron Man suits that were used were pretty cool. The visuals for them were really great, and although we didn't have very much Iron Man in this film, in Act 3, when we had a chance to see all of the Iron Man suits, it was kind of very, very cool, and we got to see Tony being super creative and sort of donning all these different armors simultaneously. It was very cool. And I enjoyed that part of the film. But Tony isn't Iron Man for very long, I think we should have seen Tony more in the Iron Man suits. Because, or at least I've spent more time with the Iron Man suit. Because they wanted to bring Tony back into how he was in Iron Man 1. Back in the cave building the suit. Well, Tony isn't that person anymore, and which is why I say, the stuff about S.H.I.E.L.D., where were they, and, the Avengers. I of course wasn't expecting an Avengers cameo, but, just something that would, Tony isn't that person anymore. And sort of, he has people working with him. People that can help him with trying to fight, with trying to defeat the Iron Man, the Mandarin. We also get the Iron Patriot in this film, which is basically a redesign of War Machine. And this was slightly amusing because Tony and Rhodey would banter about the name, and it was quite amusing. The post ending is not relevant to Avengers 2, so don't expect a continuation, but do expect some great humour between Tony and Bruce. It was pretty funny. I was very surprised at how accurate they used Extremis. Because they used the Extremis dose in, like they did in the comics, and I was quite impressed with that. Just, again, the problem is it didn't mesh well with the Mandarin story. So yeah, I'm a bit disappointed with the film. I don't think it was a strong film, and yeah, that's basically my thoughts. I shall see you later. Bye!